The Doctor. In the TARDIS. Next stop, everywhere.
Doctor Who fans, welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS, ready to talk some Doctor Who from the David Tennant era with my favorite Whovian, everybody's favorite Whovian. Welcome back to the TARDIS, Jesse Jackson.
Well, thank you, Charles. It's very nice to be back. I must say that the guest hosts you've had have been absolutely wonderful, and I am glad that you still want to hang with me.
Of course I do.
Yes, it has just been so much fun to hear everyone talk. Christine, who does the Game of Thrones podcast with me, and all the others. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, Christine says she misses you, by the way.
That's very sweet. Coming up, we are going to start. Game of Thrones is coming back soon, so we are going to meet that. I did decide not.
I can't wait for that, by the way.
I know. I did decide not to do. Or at least I said I wasn't interested in doing American Gods season 2.
Right.
I'm still going to watch it. I just didn't feel like podcasting about it because I'm limiting my amount of podcasts.
Right. You're cutting back. Yes.
Yes. So.
Yeah. Trust me, I'm all too aware.
Yeah, exactly. But you have done a great job of finding guest hosts and working, and so it's good.
Well, it's been great. Thankfully, a lot of people reached out, which makes my job a lot easier. And they've offered their services, and a lot of them have had episodes they really want to talk about, and which is great. So hopefully we'll keep that up. And we'll give you more information about that at the end of the show if you want to do that.
Absolutely.
But for right now, thanks to Christine and Lee Leonard and everybody that recently that have helped us out. You guys have been great, and we'll just keep that going. And hopefully everybody gets their taste or a chance to talk about one of their favorite Doctor Who episodes.
Absolutely. All
right, but this time, here at episode 134, we're going to talk about the Lazarus experiment. And this is an episode written by Stephen Greenhorn, the guy who wrote The Doctor's Daughter back during the David Tennant era, directed by Richard Clark. And this was the 6th episode of Series 3 that aired way back on May 5th, 2007. So this episode's going on 12 years old already, if you can believe it. Starring, of course, David Tennant as the 10th Doctor and Freema Agyeman as Martha Jones.
So my favorite companion.
Right. So is this one of the reasons why you, in the options of episodes that I offered, that you kind of picked this one?
A couple of reasons. One, I knew it would be a quick episode to rewatch, so I didn't have to do a lot of homework.
Yes.
2, David Tennant, as your theory is that your Doctor isn't always the first Doctor you watch. It's the first Doctor you watch consistently.
All the way through.
And even though I binged all of Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant's series, like I did not watch new Doctor Who till Matt Smith came on. I had binged everything at one time. I think because David Tennant had so many episodes, and that I just was able to learned to love him so much is the reason my doctor. And by far, Martha was so different than Rose. And there was just something, and I know a lot of people say she wasn't because she was in love with the doctor as well. But I always liked the idea she was going to be a doctor. She seemed to be a little more independent. She, much like Rory, was a nurse and was able to contribute. She just really impressed me. And it doesn't hurt that she's absolutely stunningly beautiful. I will just admit. And by the way, as we go, she's currently starring in New Amsterdam as she's playing a doctor. I smiled when we watched the first episode, and I was like, Linda, she's my favorite companion. She's my favorite companion. And Linda's like, okay. But Linda likes the series too, and she has really liked her character. She's done a lot of stuff since she's left Doctor Who.
That's great. Yeah, she is. She was on that J. Michael Straczynski show.
Yes.
I'm blanking on the name of it, but
Sense8.
Sense8. Thank you so much. Yes,
playing a very different character than Martha.
Yes. I would say so.
A little more adult.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that.
Now, what are your feelings on Martha?
Oh, well, we've talked about that. I adore Martha. I think she's one of the most underrated companions out there. And, especially after, everybody focuses on the 10th Doctor and Rose or the 10th Doctor and Donna. Yeah. Martha tends to get overlooked in that. And I don't think that's really fair because I think Martha was a great companion. And so consequently, when her episodes are coming on and we get a chance to talk about it, I'm really excited because I want to give Freema Agyeman her due as one of the great modern era companions.
Very nice.
I really like her a lot, and I think the character was great. I think sometimes she wasn't served as well by the scripts, but I don't fault the character. I'm one of those people that believe that there aren't really bad characters; there's just bad writing.
Yes.
And
I also think sometimes they're trying something.
Yes.
The writers are trying something, and sometimes I think we've talked about this before in Kevin Pollak's podcast where he talks to chat people. He will say, "No one tries to make a bad movie. No one tries to make a bad TV show. Everyone has the best intentions, and even." He says,
but we know what the road to hell is paved with, don't we?
Exactly. He says every once in a while you can tell in the middle of it, okay, this isn't going to work out. But normally you can't. You're just doing your work. And so I totally agree at times. And I do think you should. One of the things as a Whovian is learn to appreciate all the different nuances of the Doctors and the Companions because they each are unique and bring something to the table special.
Right. And here we get a great example of that because we have Martha's family that features heavily in this, especially her sister and her mother.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that here in a moment. First, I want to run down the guest cast in this episode.
Please do.
So primarily, of course, we have Mark Gatiss as Professor Richard Lazarus. And now
I had forgot he was on this.
Now Gatiss obviously has written a lot of Doctor Who episodes, especially from the he's written from the Christopher Eccleston era all the way through to the Peter Capaldi era. And hasn't written for Jodie Whittaker yet. I don't know if he will. Because he has written for quite a long time of Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. But he's also appeared as an actor, because he is an actor, obviously. And he appeared in the Doctor Who stories, The Wedding of River Song. He had a cameo as a character named Gantok. That was the kind of chess-playing guy that the 11th Doctor runs across. And, of course, he's primarily known as Captain Archibald Hamish Lethbridge Stewart in Peter Capaldi's Swan Song episode, Twice Upon a Time. It's very heavily featured in that. Also, He's been outside of Doctor Who. He's known as Mycroft Holmes in the Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss created Sherlock version with Benedict Cumberbatch. And then he's also played Tycho Nestorius on Game of Thrones.
I was going to wonder if you were going to bring that up.
Of course I was
yes.
going to bring that up.
Yeah.
So he's in Game of Thrones, and he's been in all kinds of other things, the League of Gentlemen, just all kinds of things. So you can look that up, obviously, on IMDb. We could be here all day running down his resume.
Yeah.
But very cool actor and writer. Gugu
looks like he has a small part in Good Omens.
Yes.
So
I was
I'm
very
excited
happy
about that. Yeah.
I was very happy. Just another reason why everybody needs to watch Good Omens when it airs on Amazon. Gugu Mbatha-Raw, who's had quite a bit of a career boost since Doctor Who. She plays Letitia Tish Jones, which is Martha's sister, and she's been in recent movies A Wrinkle in Time, and she's been in the 2017 live-action version of Beauty and the Beast. She's been in that. She was in the movie Concussion with Will Smith, and she was in the very highly notable episode San Junipero, and from the series Black Mirror.
Oh, nice.
Which was one of their bigger episodes. So she's been in quite a number of things. She's had a great career since Doctor Who. We have Adjoa Endo as Francine Jones, Martha's mom, and of course Tish's mom. And she's been in a couple of other Doctor Who projects. She played Sister Jet, one of the cat nuns, in the episode New Earth.
Nice.
Which was a previous. So under all that makeup was Martha's mom. Think about that.
Wow.
When you watch that episode. She played a character named Nurse Albertine in a Big Finish audio adventure, which was from a Colin Baker Sixth Doctor audio called The Year of the Pig. So if you want to check her out there, you could do so. And she was also on the Chris Chibnall created and ran series Broadchurch, which also featured David Tennant. So she was in that. And we also had Bertie Carville, who played a character known only as the Mysterious Man, who is the character that shows up at the very end of the episode to kind of whisper stuff to Martha's mom about the Doctor on behalf of the Master. It's kind of propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
So if you watch the miniseries Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell recently, he played, of course, Jonathan Strange in that. And he was also rumored to be the 13th Doctor there for a good while.
Oh, nice.
His name was one of those that was rumored for consideration until, of course, Jodie Whittaker got the role. He also played a character named Sebastian Wilkes in the Sherlock story The Blind Banker. And he's also recently on The Crown, the Netflix series The Crown. So pretty cool actor. I really like him, and I thought he would have made a great Doctor after watching him in Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And then, of course, we also had Reggie Yates as Leo Jones in the story. So
I did want to give one other shout-out to the Gugu.
Sure.
I'm not sure how to say her name.
Gugu Mbatha-Raw.
Yes. Thank you. The Keith O'Sullivan show Touch, which was, she played a social worker and was really well in that. She is very captivating as an actress, and you're right, she has done a lot of work since this. So really, really nice.
Well, good.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So with that, we will go ahead and dive right into our main topics this week.
Yes.
And I don't have cutesy song titles or anything this time for this one.
Okay.
So we're just going to dive in. First topic I want to talk about is, of course, the 10th Doctor and Martha Jones. And their relationship kind of progresses a little forward as far as Doctor and Companion goes, because after doing a few episodes of traveling through time and space, they return home. The Doctor returns Martha home with the kind of intention that, okay, we're going to say goodbye. And Martha isn't quite ready to say goodbye just yet. So I want to get your thoughts on these two characters.
I do not remember I don't know if it was her choice or his choice of them just doing a couple of trips. I do not remember. But I love the scene where at the end she goes, "I want to do more than that," and he says, "Okay." And then when she's leaving, he's like, "I said okay." And then he says, "You were more than just you never were just the passenger." I like their chemistry together. As I said, Martha is one of my favorite companions. She's so smart. She's got a lot of,
She brings something to the table.
She does. And so I'm
because she's a doctor, so she actually has useful skills.
Yeah, she does. And so I've been really impressed with her. It was good to see them interacting again. I liked I like the idea that her parents were not trusting this mysterious stranger.
Right.
And of course she trusts him immediately. I mean, he's the doctor. And so I like that interaction back and forth. And so now,
I do want to talk about Tish and Francine later in our third topic. But we do kind of get her family.
Yeah.
And we get a feeling of just like, I think Martha's reminded of how much she wanted to escape her family.
Yeah, I think she's there's a lot of pressure, her getting her degree, being successful. And I like the idea. You understand every time you watch this that people enjoy traveling with the doctor. Even though it's scary and a lot of bad things can happen, it's an adventure. You go to just the exciting places, and you are very much comfortable with the doctor because you trust him.
Right.
So yeah, I just love their interaction. David Tennant is so much fun to watch as the doctor. He's, the whole, what did that guy say? And being like, no, you can't do this. Being smart, acting, we've got him with his little glasses that he talked about, he just puts on.
Yeah, the brainy specs.
Yeah.
Now we also get to see him wearing his tuxedo once again.
Yes.
Which the doctor makes this reference that, of course, every time he wears this black tuxedo, everything goes horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Which, of course, refers to things like episodes like Voyage of the Damned or Rise of the Cybermen and whatnot. But Martha thinks it looks kind of like James Bond.
And he's very
like,
happy
hey,
with that.
Well, you think so?
Yeah. I love that interaction. Yes, it's very, very good. Also, a great moment is when he's very polite to her mom. I've heard a lot about you. What have you heard? Well, really, just that you're her mom, So, yeah.
He wasn't sure where to go with that. Mm-hmm. He didn't have anything. He wasn't expecting that question.
Yeah. So, I just love them together.
Yeah. No, he confronts. Basically, the 10th Doctor gets to be a bit of a science geek in this episode.
He does.
And to the point where Tish is just like, "Oh, he's a science geek." Well, that explains it.
Mm-hmm.
Like Tish immediately is turned off, I guess, by the doctor being a science geek.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was good. And then, that the doctor takes it, of course, as a compliment that he's a science geek, which I thought was rather good.
Absolutely.
And, obviously he's confronted with Lazarus, and he's very distrusting of Lazarus using whatever scientific method he's come up with to reverse his aging, because of course it goes against the natural order of things, and of course being a Time Lord, that it doesn't quite set well with him.
Well, and the other thing is, as he talks about this is too complicated. You're gonna forget, you're gonna miss something. And
Right.
the idea of the arrogance that, no, I won't forget anything, frustrates the doctor, because you shouldn't be that cocky.
Right. Yeah, and then of course, that brings him into much more conflict because he knows that the 10th Doctor obviously sees that because of all his previous experience, knows that Lazarus is being rather selfish in his motives, and hasn't really thought this through.
Right.
And as a result, ends up making himself a big danger, and obviously has to be taken down. So that when we get to the end of the episode, they do this ultimate climax at Suffolk Cathedral, and the doctor, and this was kind of addressed a little bit in the episode, is that the doctor essentially turns Martha and Tish into bait.
Yes.
To lead Lazarus into this trap. And so what did you think about the doctor doing that? And Martha kind of being aware, well, Tish points it out, but what did you think about Martha's reaction to that, the idea of being bait?
Well, and Martha trusts the doctor, so she's okay with this. She's not going to worry. I can understand Tish going, hey, wait a minute.
Right.
So I'm okay with it, and I like how Martha was, she trusts the doctor. And if you look at it from her mother's perspective, it's okay. She should be worried because she doesn't understand who the doctor is, and all she knows is this handsome stranger that it seems to be taking her all the way over, right?
Right.
And
right.
that's something that scares her.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Now we talked about that. Once the episode's over, they go back to Martha's flat. The doctor offers her one more trip, and she's like, "No, I don't want to do just one more trip. I'm not down with that."
Right.
Do you think the doctor at this moment was he clued in about that? Do you think he was aware of what Martha wanted, or did she had to basically lay it out for him? Or was it, and she was just? Do you think he was kind of going along with it, or do you think that wanted to see? Do you think he wanted to see if she wanted more, or do you think that he was just clueless about her feelings about it?
You can make a case either way. There is often the doctor is so busy upstairs as I do a gesture that no one can see but Charles.
Right. He kind of looks like he's sprinkling water with his hand on his head.
He's his mind is so above everything that he doesn't see the trivial. But I also think, there is
do you think he was testing her?
Yes, and I think someone with a lot more dedication or time than you and I could do a whole study on the doctor inviting companions to go with him and her, and would they do that, and what they do it, and what are the ideas, because often it seems like he reluctantly brings companions. Other time it seems like they embrace the idea of having a companion. And if we, like I said, it would have to be someone who had a lot more time and effort to see, is there a trend on why sometimes he is reluctant and other times is he just, kind of immediately, yeah, come along. So I do think he's always worried that they're going to get hurt. But also I think he sometimes just wants, why wouldn't you want to go with me? It's fun.
Right.
And he likes showing off to people, and he also likes seeing it
through their
Yeah,
eyes.
and it's more fun to do this together than it is just by yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, my take on this scene in particular, I kind of see that this is the Doctor finally accepting that, he's ready for another companion.
Yeah.
That he had gone through that whole like that whole horrible loss of Rose, that she ended up trapped in the other universe, and he was just resistant to the idea that maybe, and because of that, he was just so focused on himself and how he felt. He wasn't really considering Martha's feelings, so he was kind of just pushing her away. And I think here he finally come to terms with it, that okay, this is going to happen, and apparently, I want you to travel with me. So
yeah.
Maybe at this point he's finally ready to take on another companion.
I think you are very spot on. As you say that, I agree with you. Now, are you in the camp that believes that the 10th Doctor loved Rose?
They certainly tried to infer that, didn't they?
Yes.
But for whatever reason, he couldn't say it. That he couldn't express it.
Yeah.
But it did seem so odd that of all the creatures in the universe that he's encountered, he's going to fall for this shop girl from London. That it's just you just kind of wonder, like, okay, what makes Rose that special?
Yeah,
I mean, I have nothing against Rose.
Sure.
But just compared to all the other companions he's been with, and compared to like all the other beings he's encountered throughout all that time and space,
yeah,
Rose is going to be the one he wants to hook up with. It didn't quite sell for me, and it never has.
And I do wonder if sometimes the implication is in previous Doctor and companion relationships, there was a little more romance than they implied at the time. So therefore, he doesn't do it with every companion, but there are certain companions where they do have an emotional, almost romantic connection,
a closer relationship than others.
Yeah. So, I tend to, and maybe
because I don't think it certainly was like love with River Song.
No, I mean, I think River Song, there truly was, right, a romance there.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know. That's very interesting to think. But I do agree that,
with Martha, obviously it's unrequited.
Yes, and they make sure that we know that, where, she says, I had a friend that just adored this bloke and he did not even know it. And I think the Doctor either didn't know it, or I think more likely he knew it and he pretended not to know it because he didn't want to hurt her feelings.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else about the 10th Doctor and Martha before we move on?
Just, I love his sneakers.
The Converse.
Yes, I love, as they call them, trainers.
Yes.
Right.
And the Doctor, he has the audacity to wear, sneakers, tennis trainers, what have you, with a tuxedo.
Yeah.
Into a formal event.
Yeah, it's just so much fun
to show his individuality, I guess.
Absolutely.
Right. A touch of his actual costume.
He picked up playing the organ because hanging out with Beethoven.
Right.
And that great joke, we're like, well, that's where you learn to, play loud. And he went,
what?
Huh? What? Yeah, that was a good joke.
That was good. All right. Let's move on. Topic number 2, Professor Lazarus. I guess we could also talk about Lady Thaw in this segment. Mm-hmm. But obviously, Professor Richard Lazarus is the big bad of the episode, the scientist who's so obsessed with reversing his aging process that he ends up becoming a giant scorpion-like creature in the process. So I want to get your thoughts on Lazarus in this story and his kind of moral debate with the doctor or ethical debate with the doctor about what he did to himself. So what did you think about this villain?
He's a very one-note villain in a lot of ways. I did not find a lot of depth. I think
he's just the scientist gone wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a mustache, he would be twirling it.
Right.
The idea that once he became younger, he had nothing to do with his companion, his either wife or girlfriend. I'm not sure which. But
I'm guessing it was like it's never quite made clear about what Lady Thaw's relationship to him is. Are they married or are they just been together forever?
Yeah, and he is so.
But it's very antagonistic.
Yeah, because he said, as if I would want to spend another lifetime with you.
Right. So that kind of implies marriage.
Yeah. He's just not a very nice guy.
No, he's not. No, I mean, there's like early on in the episode where he's obviously still old at this point. He's hitting on Tish.
Yes.
And he's asking her like, "Hey, what's that perfume?" And she's all like, "Soap."
Yeah.
And so he's being all kind of creepy toward her. And he obviously he has these longings of a younger man, but of course because he's so old, he can't act upon them. And so maybe this is one of the reasons why he's so driven to become younger. But he's so desperate he ends up cutting corners.
Yes.
And in the process, he turns himself into this creature. And at first it works. It looks like everything's working perfectly. He comes out. He's just like, "Hey, I'm like 76 years old, but I'm reborn." And everybody's amazed because, hey, he's young again. But of course we find out that, everything didn't go quite as according to plan. And he starts snacking down because he's got all these, I guess, calories. He's so calorie deficient. And because his body's going through this metamorphosis. And ultimately he succumbs to becoming this creature, which ultimately leads to his doom. So essentially, the thing he wanted most is what actually killed him. And like you said, he's very antagonistic toward Lady Thaw. He's very cold and cruel to her. She just wants "Oh, hey, you made yourself young. I can make myself young too, and we could be together." And he's all like, "I'm not really down with that."
Yeah.
And so he has very selfish motives at this point.
Yeah, and he's all, he likes Trish, and he's all, I'm going to enjoy this. And
obviously when he gets younger, then they start he starts making the moves on her again.
And I love that line where she goes, "I was going to snog him."
Yeah.
Like, ugh.
Yeah. It shows you that Tish has really bad taste in men.
Yes, a very bad taste in men.
Right, and she's looking down her nose at the doctor, which I thought was like, really? You're going to look down your nose at the doctor after you're tasting guys?
Right.
Thought that was pretty good. But so the doctor and Lazarus kind of get into this debate over the course of these various transformations. Whenever there's a break in the action, and they need to kind of dial the special effects budget back. The doctor was just appalled by this, and they kind of they almost at the end become to a mutual understanding, which I thought was interesting.
Yes.
But he makes this one comment about "Well, doctor, I know that the way you sound, I almost believe that you're older than you look."
Mm-hmm.
So what did you think of that scene?
I like that scene. When I say he's a one-note villain, I'm not criticizing it. It's just There's
You know,
not a lot of depth.
I think you're right about that.
He is
They
very evil, very
Right.
short-sighted, very selfish. We show that very well. It is sometimes fun, in fact, it's often fun, when the
Right.
Doctor is just having someone who's not a good person. You
Right.
know, often, especially during this latest season, there were a lot of misunderstood characters that the Doctor and the family were taking to. So I like this one, very straightforward. This guy's a bad guy, and he is really not trying to help humanity. This is all about him
Right.
getting rich and living life.
Yeah, and then like, well, hey, I can keep my money and live my life over again and extend it. And
multiple
whatnot.
lifetimes.
And he's talking about, like maybe he can do it indefinitely.
Yes.
And so, which again brings up a serious ethical issue. If he and other people don't die,
yes,
then that's going to use up a lot of the planet's resources, because you're going to have all these people and they're not dying.
Absolutely.
So the population will just explode because nobody's dying. And so as a result, it could obviously cause, if you remember Miracle Day, the Torchwood series, that it could cause all kinds of problems with nobody dying.
Exactly.
So now they did try to give him a little bit of character, talking about how he was young during the Blitz.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as a result, he was always fond of Suffolk Cathedral.
Right.
Which is, of course, where the story ultimately heads toward.
Mm-hmm.
So, but apart from that, yeah, you're right. There wasn't a lot of depth to this character. And now, granted, it's only a 45-minute story, so you don't really have a lot of time to add depth.
Yeah.
But it does seem like, there should have been a little bit more to this character than just like, I want to make myself young so I can hit on girls and, be the man I want to be.
Yeah, and there was this, they tried to make it right, like, oh, I was so afraid of dying that it is because of this, that's what drove him. I don't really. I think that may have started out with that, but it quickly went off rails.
Yes.
He was doing this. So yeah, I look. Mark Gatiss is a good actor, and so no matter what he's going to do.
Yeah.
Whatever material, he's going to do the best he can with it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I kind of wonder how much if Gatiss himself had written this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Would this character have more to him than what Stephen Greenhorn gave to him? I think is the question. Good. All right. All right. Let's move on to our third topic, and we kind of already talked about Tish a bit.
Yes.
But I also want to talk about Francine. So this is essentially Martha's family. Francine, especially at this point, is such a frustrating character. And, the way she views the Doctor and then gets herself manipulated by Saxton's goons. So I want to get your thoughts on Francine Jones.
So,
Martha's mom.
Doctor Who Lost had daddy issues. A lot of the characters had father issues. It appears Doctor Who has mommy issues. Often the companion's mom is not painted in the best image.
Like Jackie Tyler.
Yes, exactly.
Or Donna's mom, Sylvia.
Yeah. And so here is another one like that, right?
Yeah, right.
And so
that was obviously big during the Russell T Davies era. That I think maybe Russell T Davies has some mom issues.
Yeah, but I was
coming through with his characters.
I was going to say that, but then I was wondering, was Jackie yeah, that's right, because exactly, Russell T Davies had this.
Yes.
This is still him. It isn't Moffat yet.
No,
That's
it's
right.
not Moffat yet.
Yeah,
So
so
it kind of,
definitely.
if you notice, the mom issues kind of end with Moffat, or I mean, with it when Davies leaves and Moffat begins.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. I did not. It was a little bit. Um, I think that most parents would be excited, would at least be curious and polite to someone that their child is dating.
Right.
So for her to immediately be,
She slaps him real like without
yeah,
even knowing him.
yeah, and that's after the fact. But even before, he was not very nice. I mean, she wasn't very nice to him, even politeness, very,
Right.
and so I think she comes across as a very unsympathetic character, and I
Right.
do not think any of her later visits, if I remember correctly, she comes across very well.
Well, obviously we know when this ultimately leads to the Master's appearance.
Right.
And that kind of, she becomes aware, I think, more of what the Doctor is. So
Yes.
it at least settles her down to the point where she's accepting of the
Right.
situation. But here, she's very distrusting. And the question is whether she doesn't trust the Doctor or she just views the Doctor as a threat to her relationship with Martha. What do you think? What do you think?
I think it's her relationship with Martha.
Do you think
Yeah, I think that.
she views the Doctor as a threat to that?
Yeah, I think regardless of who or what he is,
right.
I think that is definitely well said, sir. Yes.
Yeah, it just seems that Francine, has her own ideas that Martha needs to go on and finish being a doctor and whatnot.
Right.
And she disappeared with the Doctor after Smith and Jones. So,
but
so
now
I
he
think,
hasn't been gone. She hasn't been gone that long, right?
No, you're right. Because, but that night she
Yes.
disappeared because remember the Doctor brought Martha back just the next day or whatever.
Yes.
So it's like so as far as Francine's concerned, that just happened yesterday. I think.
And
but you disappeared with this guy, and we don't know what happened to you, and now you show up.
Yeah, you just met a new guy. You've been gone all night. Yeah, that's
like I tried to reach you, you weren't there.
Yeah,
and obviously Martha's been off having adventures, but Francine doesn't know this.
Exactly.
But it's only been one night, but apparently like Francine again feels like, okay, I really don't like you, Doctor, and slaps him. And just is just like, okay, you do this with everybody that Martha brings home, or is just the Doctor special for this?
Yeah, it's kind of
like you don't know him at all, and you're just outright slapping him for something.
Exactly.
It's
very strange.
Very extreme behavior, and she's immediately distrusting of the Doctor, and then of course when the mysterious man. I just love the fact that there's a character called the Mysterious Man.
Yes.
Shows up at the end of the episode to kind of manipulate the situation on behalf of the Master,
right?
Who's obviously lurking in the scenes background somewhere. She's buying into that, like, oh, the Doctor's a threat. Well, tell me more. Tell me more about this. I want to know. And then she ends up like calling Martha when right at the end of the episode where Martha's trying to leave, and she leaves. I guess Martha looks at her phone and says, lets it ring and go to voicemail, whatever, and then takes off with the Doctor. But she's going warnings like, well, you need to know who the Doctor really is. This information comes from Harold Saxon himself. Apparently that's important because he's not even Prime Minister yet. But so she says, you're not safe with him.
Yeah, I wonder what the mysterious stranger said.
Yes, we don't know because he just kind of whispers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of left hanging, but
And at this point,
obviously it wasn't good.
yeah,
about
at
the
this
doctor.
point we did not know who Saxon was.
Yes.
The original watching. So we're like, what?
Who's this Saxon guy that keeps
Yeah.
getting referenced? Yeah.
Mhm.
And then obviously there were some theories about that, but which turned out to be true.
I did not, because I was binge watching this through Ken Schaefer's DVDs.
Right.
Thank you, Ken. Take a drink, everyone.
Well, there was the whole thing that that I think some fans had figured out that if you had rearranged the letters of Mr. Saxon, that if you rearrange it, it's like an anagram for Master Number 6, like Master NO6.
Oh, okay.
That's what it's like, an anagram. So that was the big tip off.
Oh, very clever.
So apparently some fans had figured that out online before. So it was kind of speculated about that the Master was going to be returning, but
that's nice.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. So, so it worked out. But at this point, Francine is just buying into the propaganda that she's being sold.
Absolutely.
And it's very frustrating at this point. This character, you can't really blame Martha for wanting to run away with the doctor, really. If Francine's like this all the time, especially with all the guys that she brings home.
Yeah, no
really?
way. And
exactly.
We later find out that she's her dad, the ex-husband, Martha's dad, has left and gotten a younger woman.
Right.
I also Martha's brother seems a little beaten down as well.
Yes,
with their mom. Yeah, so absolutely.
Yeah, Leo kind of checks out. Leo's just I'm not dealing with this. I think he's concerned about Martha.
Mm-hmm.
But and he's kind of there when when Francine's freaking out, like, why are you going off with the doctor? You should be here with us.
Yes, absolutely.
Your family. He's just this guy, and we're your family.
Yeah, and I also like the with Martha at the end. He just saved us all. Yeah, which was pretty funny.
And Tish, as a representative, really should have stood up at that point, going, "Look, he stopped the situation. Why are you getting on the doctor's case?"
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't really say anything. Maybe again, she's also kind of browbeaten by her mom.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so it doesn't really say a whole lot for Francine, really.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else about the episode before we move on?
No, it was just really good to be back watching Martha and the doctor interact. It was fun. Just it's a one and done episode. There's a monster, we fight it. It was good.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So, all right. Yeah, good. Just a solid average episode of Doctor Who, basically.
Yes, I think so. Absolutely.
All right. That sums it up, I think, perfectly.
Yes.
All right. Any favorite lines of the episode?
Yes, I have a few.
Go for it.
That's 2 impossible things we've seen so far tonight. Don't you love it when that happens?
And who said that?
This
of course,
is the doctor.
The doctor,
yes.
Yeah. All right. When I talked about the perfume and soap line, so I'll skip that one. Another exchange between Martha and the doctor, where Martha goes, "You mean you don't have a plan?" This is when they were trapped inside the machine.
Right.
The doctor says, "Yes, the plan was to get inside here." And Martha says, "Then what?" The doctor replies, "Well, then I come up with another plan."
Yes.
Which shows you the doctor's processing.
Absolutely.
How the doctor processes things.
This was, I get a kick out of any time that this is made a reference to, because there is Doctor Who.
Yeah.
It's bigger on the inside, and then the third famous phrase, really shouldn't take that long just to reverse the polarity.
Right.
I must be a bit out of practice.
Yes.
I love any time we get a reverse the polarity comment.
Reference. Yes.
Yes.
So we got to reverse the polarity.
Yes.
So I was very happy about that. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
One kind of throwaway line from the doctor I kind of liked where after Lazarus escapes the ambulance that he had been carted off into, the doctor says, "Lazarus, back from the dead." I should have known, really.
Yes, I like that. Another one that
So if
I
you're
always
familiar
think,
with the character of Lazarus from the
yes,
yeah.
Aaron Sorkin, his the American president, the Michael Douglas is the president, and he's talking
Right.
to his daughter, and his daughter says, "Compliment her shoes." And so there's a later scene where Michael Douglas tells Annette Bening, "Nice shoes," and her face lights up. The doctor must have watched that movie because he tells Martha, "Nice shoes,
Yes.
by the way."
Well, I think he was just trying to diffuse the awkwardness of the situation because they were so cramped.
Yes.
And the doctor's bending down by her feet as she's in a dress.
Yes. But
so
I have no
it's
doubt
like I'm not looking
taste.
up your skirt. I'm looking at I'm looking at your shoes.
Yes. But I have no doubt the doctor is an Aaron Sorkin fan.
Yeah.
Right.
Lastly, I have is this exchange between Lazarus and the doctor, which I thought was good. Lazarus says, "You're so sentimental, doctor. Maybe you are older than you look." The doctor replies, "I'm old enough to know that a longer life isn't always a better one. In the end, you just get tired. Tired of the struggle. Tired of losing everyone that matters to you. Tired of watching everything turn to dust. If you live long enough, Lazarus, the only certainty left is that you'll end up alone." And Lazarus replies, "That's a price worth paying."
Yes, that was very touching. I thought you were going to go with, because there are often, when you do a quote
Yes.
search, a line from this episode, "Some people live more in 20 years than others do in 80. It's not the time that counts, it's the person." Which is a line that is often quoted for the doctor.
Right.
All right.
All right. Any other quotes?
No.
As Jesse opens a cold one.
Yes. How about ratings?
Ratings. My rating, I'll go first this time. My rating, I thought it was a nice, solid, average episode of Doctor Who. So I gave it 8 out of 10 cathedral bells.
We are in sync. I said 8 out of 10 sexy shoulder tattoos. I really liked Martha having the sleeveless dress and showing off the tattoo. I found that very sexy.
So presumably that's Freema Agyeman's tattattoo.
I am thinking it is. Yes.
Yeah, so that was you like that tattoo?
I did. Like I said,
right. I never expected you for an ink lover.
Yeah.
All right.
So very
interesting.
Nice.
I learned something new today. All right. So because of course we reversed the polarity, we talked about that. We're going to do my reverse the polarity segment as we reverse the polarity of the neutron flow. Back to 1972 with the Time Monster. And this was the fifth serial from season 9, written by Robert Sloman. So this is a John Pertwee era story. So hopefully of some note to Jesse, because I know you like the Third Doctor, John Pertwee. Mm-hmm. So posing as a professor, the Master, so we have a Master connection right here, just like in the Lazarus experiment. And this is the first Master, Roger Delgado. The Master gains access to a physical science research unit in the village of Wooton, near Cambridge, and he's conducting time experiments. So we have some time experiments going on, focused around transmitting matter by breaking it down into light waves. He's particularly interested in examining a trident-shaped crystal in his possession, using it to attract a being he addresses as Kronos. The Third Doctor and Joe Grant visit the Institute following the Doctor's hunch that the Master is back on Earth with his TARDIS. Now, the experiments disrupt the normal flow of time, and in one instance, Hyde, a researcher, is caught in the field of an experiment and ages to more than 80 years. So we have a character aging, and at one point, Sergeant Benton gets reduced to the age of a baby in this story. So we have a character becoming younger. We have a character becoming older as a result of time experiments.
Ooh, nice.
So that's my big connection to the Lazarus experiment here. Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart has the project evacuated, begins a hunt for the Master. The Doctor explains that Kronos is a, quote, chronivore, a creature from outside time that feeds on it, attracted to from the vortex to ancient Atlantis using a crystal trident larger than one seen to have been used by the Master. So presumably that crystal trident was a precursor to the Aquaman movie, I guess.
Okay.
So Aquaman movie. So the Doctor suspects the Master plans to capture the chronivore and that this represents a danger to the entire universe. Meanwhile, Atlantean High Priest of Kronos named Krasis is transported through time by the Master and brought to an office at the Institute. The Master seizes the seal of Kronos from the priest, uses it to conjure Kronos, a white bird-like figure, which devours the Institute's director, Dr. Percival. Kronos is briefly contained by the Master, but it, of course, breaks free. So we have a creature on the loose, just like in Lazarus' experiment. Krasis surmises that the Master is only possessing the smaller fragment of the original crystal. And the Doctor and his allies, alerted by the Master's actions, build a time flow analog to interrupt the experiments. The Time Lords then duel using time as a weapon, leading to a series of bizarre temporal effects. When they pit their TARDISes against one another, the Doctor is ejected into the vortex but survives thanks to Joe and the Doctor's TARDIS. Krasis uses the crystal to summon Kronos to Atlantis, and the enraged chronivore begins to destroy Atlantis while the Master flees in his TARDIS, and with Joe Grant in tow. The Doctor heads off into his own TARDIS in pursuit while Kronos destroys the city and the people of Atlantis. So now you know what happened to Atlantis. In the vortex, the Doctor threatens the mutually assured destruction of both TARDISes by using a time ram, in which both vehicles would occupy the same space-time coordinates. When he carries this threat out, a thankful Kronos is set free, saving the Doctor and Joe and returning them to their TARDIS. On the Doctor's insistence, the Master is spared as well, but he flees in his own TARDIS before he can be apprehended, of course. The Doctor and Joe return to the Institute, where normalcy returns through a final use of the Master's machine, which now overloads, ending the time experiments. So that's the time monster.
Very nice.
So very cool, pretty cool story from the Jon Pertwee era. So if you like the Lazarus Experiment, you might want to check that one out as well.
Good. Great.
All right. We do have some listener feedback.
Nice.
So let me scroll through the old Gmail here. And now, way back on February 11th, Fred Firestein wrote in about the episode Inferno. So I want to get to his feedback.
Please.
Yeah, Fred writes in, "Hi, Charles, Jesse, and Karen." So Karen's sadly not here, but at least Jesse is, and of course Charles is. I took my own advice and watched Inferno one episode at a time. Unfortunately, as a result, I am probably late sending this feedback. Yeah, a little bit, but that's okay. I am still glad that I paced myself because it was slow going in this 7-part story. It was interesting that they combined a monster of a subterranean race with an alternate reality. I'm not sure that it made it unique or a little bit hard to follow. There's no real explanation, and it doesn't happen often in the show's history. I like Caroline John as Dr. Elizabeth Shaw. Before Sim Shaw, a.k.a. Tim Shaw, we had Liz Shaw. Yes, we did. As she pointed out at the end of the story, she's a doctor. Another example that the Third Doctor's female companions were breaking new ground as brave women who did not run screaming. Yep, that's one of the great things I liked about Liz. She didn't scream. Petra was another strong independent woman on both worlds. Unfortunately, her name was a little too direct. I kept wanting to say Petra means rock. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Dr. Sutton was a typical scientist gone mad with power, literally and figuratively. I think he means a different doctor because Sutton was the oil rig guy. I guess they were making a point about respect for authority at the end when no one thought would stop drilling without proper authorization. Drill, baby, drill. Fortunately, they were able to break protocol when the doctor, the guy controlling the experiments on Earth Prime also turned into a werewolf monster. Thanks for suggesting the story. I don't think I've seen it before. Stay safe and pay attention to those fault indicators, Fred.
Nice.
Thank you, Fred. Appreciate the feedback. And then catching up, once again, we have Paul Beck, Paul from Australia, writing in about Planet of the Dead. So Paul writes in, "Hi, Charles and Christine." He got unfortunately his in a little bit late as well before we recorded, but that's okay. Paul says, "Got to say right from the beginning that I enjoyed this episode, especially the fact that it was the first of the modern era to be filmed in stunning HD. This episode definitely has a Star Wars feel to it with its beautiful desert location work from the planet San Helios. The fact that the bus got damaged in transit to the shoot caused a few minor rewrites to the story, but nothing that detracted from the plot. And by the way, who doesn't love a flying bus? Just brilliant."
Absolutely.
As for Lady Christina, another character that should have been a companion, she would have been great. At least Big Finish picked up the ball. So yeah, Big Finish, of course, creating some Lady Christina audio adventures. If you're interested in learning more about Lady Christina, you might want to check those out.
I did not know that.
Because
Very nice.
Michelle Ryan returns for that.
Good.
Even Malcolm would have been fun to use in other stories. Well, when we talked about Inferno, of course, or not Inferno, excuse me, Planet of the Dead, I pitched my idea of a Malcolm and Osgood spinoff series. I thought that would have been great.
Oh, yeah.
I love the warning given to the Doctor by Carmen foreshadowing what was to come. The song was indeed ending soon for the 10th incarnation. Kindest regards as always, Paul. P.S. Okay, Charles, I'm completely in the dark where you are taking us next. Can't wait. Well, you have to stay tuned for that. Because we have Holly Mack writing in about the Lazarus experiment.
Yay, Holly.
You want to read Holly's email?
I did not have it.
That's all right. I've got it. I've got it right here.
Great.
All right. So Holly writes in, "Hello, all. It's been a while since I've seen this episode, and I have to say I think I enjoyed it a bit better this time than the first few times I watched it. The Doctor has issues with the mothers of his companions. At least the 10th Doctor does, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Grandfathers and fathers, not so much. Yeah, he's okay with Wilf, and we'll see. Lazarus was an interesting villain. It makes me wonder if he was also doing research and experiments for Harold Saxon. It's a good question. I think he was, because Saxon, I think, was funding his experiment.
Yes.
If I recall correctly.
I think so.
All right. I think there was a throwaway line by Lady Thaw about that, because she was talking about pulling his funding, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Holly continues, just from the way one younger associate of Lazarus, or possibly Saxon, was talking to Martha's mom and Martha's choice in friends, and how he was able to turn her against the Doctor. Love the Doctor's nod to Spinal Tap in the Cathedral by using the sonic to turn the organ up to 11. Yeah, that was great. If you're a fan of This Is Spinal Tap, you caught that Turn It Up to 11 reference.
I did. I love that a lot.
That was great. The ending with Martha and the Doctor heading out to their next adventure, and Martha missing the message, warning her about the Doctor, leads us right into the Saxon arc. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. So
good. Very nice.
Thanks to you as well, Holly. We always love hearing from you, and of course Paul and everybody else. So thank you so much. We definitely appreciate that. And of course Fred, because everybody loved Fred when he was on Next Stop Everywhere.
Yes, it was.
So that was great. So thanks for that. Next time on Next Stop Everywhere.
Before you do that, I wanted to take us off just on a little Whovian-related news. I don't.
Okay, go for it.
Just a reminder, David Tennant has a new podcast.
Yes.
And I took time to listen to him talking to Jodie Whittaker, and it was a very interesting discussion.
I haven't heard that yet, so I got to listen to that.
Yeah, they shared a little bit of the process. They talked about her not thinking herself as making female choices when she's playing the Doctor. She just thinks as making choices. She talks a little bit about the work she did, and they both talk about before they took this role, they realized this is a role that, taking this role changes your life forever. And it's a really hard role. And so it's about an hour. Really fun discussion. They're both very likable, which is not shocking. I really recommend it. I have not listened to any of the episodes, though David has a very cool interview style, so I think I will be talking to a few others. But I definitely recommend just do a search, David Tennant new podcast, and it will show up. And
Isn't
you
it
can
called?
listen
Isn't
to
it called like David Tennant has a podcast or something like that?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely want to check out that episode with Jodie Whittaker and others,
Yeah.
of course.
Yes, absolutely.
I think he was interviewing Whoopi Goldberg and some other people.
Yeah,
as well.
Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right, continue on.
All right, no problem. So next time on Next Stop Everywhere, we're going to go back to the Tom Baker era, and we're going to talk The Invisible Enemy with Joe Corelgia, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Joe, because Joe, if you remember, was kind enough to say some very nice words about Next Stop Everywhere and how we were being positive and how she really appreciated that. So turns out she was interested in talking on Next Stop Everywhere as well. She took me up on the offer to everyone to if you're interested in being a co-host for a guest episode. She pitched the idea of The Invisible Enemy. This episode is primarily known because it's the first K9 episode.
Oh,
so
yay.
We get the debut of K9 here, K9 Mark 1. And so this is, and then of course it's also the fourth Doctor in Leela, which is always a great Doctor companion duo to talk about. So definitely looking forward to talking The Invisible Enemy with Joe. So we'll be doing that here shortly. And we have a couple other people in the works. I know Christine's talked about the idea of coming back for a Matt Smith episode.
Nice.
And got a couple of people. Stephanie Marie Freiney, if you're out there, you talked about getting back with an episode you want to talk about. I haven't heard from you, so I just thought I'd remind you, if you're listening, that that offer is still open. And then we have John, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, so apologies to John, Takacs, Takacs, or Takacs. I'm guessing it's Takacs, but I could be wrong. So hopefully he'll set me straight on that one as well. But he's expressed interest in joining me here. So we do have some of that in the works. So Jesse will be back to talk another episode here in about a month. But just want to let everybody know that, yes, we're still doing the fill-in host while he's away. And if you want to reach out, if you're interested, you can reach out like these fine people did at nextstopeverywheresmg@gmail.com. That's nextstopeverywheresmg for Southgate Media Group @gmail.com. Or you can reach us on the Twitter machine at nextstopsmg if you don't do the email thing. Or you can reach us on our Facebook page at Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. That's definitely a great place to reach us. We are also on Next Stop Everywhere podcast on Instagram, but haven't done much with that lately, but of course with Karen being away, but probably need to do something with that. So we need to kind of step up our Instagram game. So we'll do that. Jesse, where can they reach you on the interwebs?
I can be reached, by the way, right now I am leaning toward the Talons of Wang Cheng as our
Chiang?
next, yeah.
Ooh, that's a rather controversial story.
I know, but is often rated as one of the best Tom Baker serials. So
right, you get to see Tom Baker's fourth Doctor as Sherlock Holmes in that one.
Yes.
But unfortunately, there are some rather awkward racist things going on that we'll have to talk about as well. But it should make for an interesting discussion.
Absolutely. Yes, I can be reached at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. You can find me at Jesse Jackson in Louisville, Texas on Facebook. You can hear me talk music on Set Lusting Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast. Right. And you can hear Charles and I lovely banter on Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, where right now we are discussing the Doom Patrol. And spoilers, we are loving this very quirky series. Really
Yes, it's
great
great.
stuff.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're enjoying it.
Yes. And Charles, how about you? Where can they hear more of your fine work?
Well, I don't know about fine work, but you can hear me at on Twitter at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter machine, or at Charles Skaggs on the Instagram. Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio. Or my blog of geeky things, if I can get the thing to work.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn Good Coffee and Hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on Next Stop Everywhere, including Doctor Who, Torchwood, anything relating to Sarah Jane Adventures, or any kind of comic book sci-fi news, casting news, movie, TV show news, whatever floats my interest, and I have a lot of them. News of my other podcasts they do for Southgate Media, including the aforementioned Titan Talk, the Titans podcast they do with you, Jesse, and also Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast they do with Zan Sprouse, wife of comic book artist Chris Sprouse, where we talk about all things David Lynch and Twin Peaks, of course. So please check those out. I would definitely appreciate it. I'm sure my co-host would as well.
Absolutely.
All right. So everybody, come on back next time for episode, where are we up to? Episode 135.
All right.
Now, with the invisible enemy. So, Joe Corelja, you're on deck.
Yes.
And hopefully, you're looking forward to it. I really hope you enjoy yourself and have a lot of fun. And so come on back. We're going to talk about the invisible enemy, the first appearance of K9, and I can't wait.
All right. And, I love me some K9.
Yeah, do we have any kind of – do we have a closing quote? All right.
We do. The universe has to move forward. Pain and loss, they define us as much as happiness or love. Whether it's a world or relationship, everything has its time and everything ends.
Very good. I love that quote. All right. Yeah. So we'll see you next time right here. Next Up Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Well, I'm more happy to do it for you.
Yeah.
Other than that, I actually wanted to ask you something.
Sure.
You also being a huge Doctor Who fan yourself, have you ever had the chance to go to any of these big Doctor Who conventions, like even in the UK and stuff?
I have not been to UK. There is a huge convention in Atlanta called Dragon Con. It is every Labor Day weekend. At that one, I was able to get my picture taken with Peter Davison and Sylvester McCoy.
Oh wow, man! I am so envious right now.
And then there was a Comic Palooza was in Houston, and I was lucky enough. I had offered to help, and so the guy who was doing the Doctor Who panel, so I was able to interview Paul McCann.
Wow.
The Eighth
What's he
Doctor.
like? Is he a good guy?
Absolutely a great guy.
Okay.
Absolutely. This was right before the 50th anniversary, where they had released the little 5-minute episode where, he converted. They showed his, regeneration. And he talked about how much he loved doing the big audios and how excited it was. And then I also was able to interview Colin Baker. And,
oh, wow.
And he talked about how much he loved, Isaac Asimov and comic books and everything growing up. So I was able to interview both of them, and that was a lot of fun. That was, getting to actually interview a couple of doctors was amazing.
Oh well,
So,
I can only imagine. I mean,
Yeah.
it's that's why I said. I mean, it's you know what? And it's really sad that certain of them passed away at such a young age. I mean, I think of
Yes.
John Pertwee. He passed away super young at the end of the day. I mean, he could have still been alive and well today, hadn't it been, for what happened.
Absolutely. Now I met his son
Oh,
at a comic convention, from Gotham. He plays. And so I have a good friend named Tom Zoller. And Tom is a artist. And so he does this for me. I pay him, of course, but he drew a picture of Sean Pertwee dressed up as his dad as the Doctor. And then the young guy who played Bruce Wayne dressed up like Tom Baker's Doctor.
wow,
And-
that must have been trippy.
Yeah, and it was like they were out for Halloween.
Oh, wow.
And so I was able to get him signed both of them. Both of them get signatures. And he really liked that. And, he said that nothing would make him happier than to play his dad's Doctor in like a movie. To kind of just to continue that legacy and play that. He just thinks that would be a blast.
You know what? I hope that they do that eventually, because already there was quite a homage paid to John Pertwee, in the past with the movies and everything else, and it would be amazing to see Sean Pertwee either be on Doctor Who in some capacity or to play a Doctor. I mean, because he's not that old,
No,
so
he's not.
He could carry it off. And also I think now with Jodie Whittaker being the current Doctor, and she's obviously, I think, younger compared to some of the other Doctors there have been, if you don't count, of course, Matt Smith and such.
Yeah, exactly.
So he could probably pull it off, and I think Sean Pertwee would actually be a really good Doctor.
I think he would too. So
cool. So fingers crossed.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, my friend. You have a great day. I appreciate it. This was a blast.
Oh, well, thank you, Jesse. You take care of yourself.
I will.
And I believe I do have your email address to send you the liners, so I'll get them done for you ASAP. That said, we'll talk on Facebook and such, and I guess we'll be talking in a month or so about Doom Patrol.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, you
Thanks.
take care of yourself. Talk soon,
Okay.
eh?
Bye-bye.
Right, bye-bye.